My name's Kevin Boyle. I'm the Director of Organizational Workforce Development for the Equitable Food Initiative, and I'll let my partner introduce herself.
Hello, my name is Lulu Rivera. I am the training manager for UFI.
As we go through today, any questions or things you want more clarity on, please use the chat, and we'll try to keep track of that and try to address whatever issues and questions you might have. So, should we get started? Lulu.
Yes, I am going to share my screen now. Go ahead.
So, the idea of leadership and facilitation from our perspective is leading from the inside out. And it starts with us as individuals, um, really trying to be trustworthy in the context of our leadership, our manager style, and then how we interact within the organization. And it's really important from the inside out is what are our core beliefs and our values uh, in my relationship with others. There's a lot of books written about leadership and they talk about behaviors. What we're really talking about here is what's the attitude you have towards others? Do you see them as a whole human being that are there in alignment with what you're attempting to do, or do you see them as a tool? And that attitude really then begins to build trustworthiness with others. So it's important to keep in alignment with our core beliefs, stay in alignment with our role and responsibilities as a manager, and then to also try to align with the larger organization beliefs, strategies, and tactics within the organization. So we're going to start today with what's that personal layer of trustworthiness? Is it really important as we really get clarity around our beliefs and values about ourselves and about others and about the world around us, and stay aware of those beliefs. I mean, that people talk about gut feelings. There is a real power to understanding what's going on around you and your own self-awareness by how you feel inside. And leadership really is about staying focused, staying steady, whether things are going well or staying grounded in conflict. So we're going to really talk about how important it is to use ourself as leaders to really begin to create high performing impact in organizations with others, with your work and whatever your role and responsibility is, and stay in alignment with the organization as a whole. So, as a facilitating high performance as a leader, we really use ourselves as that instrument. Um, we lead, we recognize that we have a task to do, we have a strategy to fulfill. And as a leader, we really try to develop a process where people can engage in that process, they can use their tools, and as a group, we can get that work done. But also as a leader, paying attention to the group. Everybody has different interests from time to time, they have different gifts, they have different roles that they play, and understanding how groups work together and how your team works together in alignment with the values and beliefs of the organization, of the people in the room, and of yourself really makes high performing and getting task and work done. Um, Not always fun, but most of the time, um, it really works to get the group to work together, and it's a brilliant thing to see as a leader. So there's some skills that go with that in terms of how we stay focused on ourself, the process and the group, and the task at hand. And Lulu, I think, is going to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, let's talk about those the core three skills that a leader has. When we work with leaders, these three core skills, active listening, conflict navigation, and inclusive communication, are the ones that comes up more often in terms of what a leader needs to really guide a group and make better decisions and work together. So let's start with the first skill, that's active listening. um, and when we talk about active listening, we're not just talking about hearing, we're talking about hearing, but also observing and understanding and sensing and understanding the feelings of the other person or the group that we're working on. It's paying a full, it's giving someone your full attention, not just waiting for your turn to talk, and really using it as the foundation for empathy, seeing someone else's perspective by asking questions and clarifying and looking for understanding. When we are listening with intention, we are also aware about how we feel in this interaction, how to be able to acknowledge the feelings that we have, our own reactions, for about what the other person is saying or sharing with us. Because when we are able to do that, we can ask for clarifying questions, the clarifying questions that can help us really understand what the information that we're getting really means, and break down what the other person wants to share with us. So, sometimes, for example, when someone comes to you and it sounds like they are frustrated or that they are angry, it might be that they are passionate about it, about what they're saying. So when we are aware of how we are interpreting and receiving the information that is being shared, then we can understand and see what the other person means and is trying to share with us. So listening to understand builds trust and reduces misunderstandings and lays a foundation for better conversations, and at the end of the day, better decisions. And when people feel heard, they are willing to collaborate. They want to collaborate and work with us towards navigating conflict if it arises, which is something that is really normal. Conflict is part of life. And when we work together and ask questions, we can handle it better. So strong leaders approach conflict by looking at it as information. When there is tension and it shows that there are something that is not clear or something that needs to be understood better, we are in a position to break down the conflict and really understand what is it that needs our attention. So instead of avoiding conflict, that sometimes that's what we usually do, bringing these issues into the open and guiding the conversations can help a team work through that conflict. And instead of focusing on the problem and get stuck on it, we can acknowledge what is happening and work towards solutions that better serve the collective. When handled well, conflicts can lead to clarity. They can lead to stronger relationships, instead of dividing us over. So paying attention to them is going to help you see where your leadership is needed. Is it needed to bring people together and clarify our direction? Or is it needed because maybe things needs to slow down and we need to realign our vision or our goals? Or we need to rebalance the conversation and make space for different perspectives? When we take a break to really consider where our leadership is needed, then we can use it and guide the group toward better results. And it doesn't mean that conflict is always going to be solved to everyone's satisfaction, but we can agree on which areas are we willing to compromise and feel better about it. And the last skill, our next skill, is inclusive communication. When we think about creating the space for bringing diverse perspectives and building trust in a group, we are providing a space for them to take ownership of whatever the situation is or our relationship. It builds better relationships. And making sure that everyone's voices is heard. Sometimes, usually, when we are making decisions, the loudest voices or maybe the senior voices are the ones that are heard the most. And there are some other quieter voices that get shut down, and their perspectives are not heard. And there might be some very important key insights that can improve a situation or that can change a situation for the better. So when, as effective leaders, when we are intentional about creating the spaces to for those voices to be heard, you are enriching those relationships as well. How we do that is by asking good questions, checking in with people, evaluating how we are holding those relationships. How are we holding um, our meetings, or how are we holding our groups together? Making sure that they can contribute.
So,
Go ahead, Kevin.
Lulu, so these are really skills because in all of our roles, if we're trying to lead in an organization, we have roles and responsibilities that we're responsible for. And we have an organization who's expecting some return and success in their performance. And you might look at these and go, oh, that's going to take too much time. I mean, I've got all this stuff going on. That's when you realize that you've got this skill because you can integrate all of these at one time.
Yeah.
When people think, well, this might be too much to solve this conflict, or too much to engage everyone, or too much time to really actively listen, one must step back and say, well, how much more time will I need to spend if we don't get this resolved? I think as you become better at a skill, I suppose it's like, anything in art, in theater, in sport. Initially, some of the things that you're asked to do feel very uncomfortable and they don't feel natural. But when you get them, there's a true skill that just becomes a part of who you are. And that's why these three skills are significant in trying to integrate them into our work. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't take time and we can move on quicker. So,
Definitely.
it's not just information. You've really got to bring in those skills and be part of who you are.
And that's part of what we're going to be doing during our facilitation course, is
Yeah.
to learn how to bring these three together and practice them in real world scenarios. To, we want this this course to be a space for you to practice and strengthen those skills. Like Kevin was saying, it's like an art. So it's something that you need to strengthen and grow. Thank you, Kevin. Let's talking about practicing. I like to ask you to think about, let's use this scenario and think about how we would apply these skills. Let's think that your organization has changed a major objective for you and your team, as a leader and as a facilitator. How would you communicate and implement this change? I would like all of you to take a minute and think about this and share in the chat with us. How would you implement these skills in this scenario? Anyone? I like to learn a little bit more about you and your thoughts. I see we have a couple of guests here, so let's see who would like to share with us. How about you, Kevin? How would you apply these skills in this scenario?
Well, it's interesting you ask because we in EFI we're going through some major changes in our team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a director and a leader of the organization, it's just really important to ask first how you're doing. Um, Oftentimes, if you're a leader in an organization and people above you make change, a lot of that pressure and stress comes back on top on you, right? But if we don't address it, then it just permeates down throughout the organization. So I think the first piece is here's the change. Um, Here's what we're expected to do, and ask the question of how's this fit for you?
Mm-hmm.
Because leaders teach, but leaders also learn. If you really have the attitude that people in your organization have experiences, um, have skills, have knowledge that you may not know and understand by asking that inquiring question around active listening. Okay, so what do you think about this? And how should we approach um, dealing with this change within our own team? So just asking that question, listening to all the points of view, and then collectively trying to come up with an idea how we move forward and how we take care of one another moving forward. Because change creates a whole new dynamic, and it's important to pay attention to how other people are feeling and how other people are coping with whatever change comes about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it takes me back to the framework that we were talking at the beginning, how we have to take care of the self and the other selves of the other beings that are part of an organization, and look for um, how they feel with change, so we can all work together towards how these feelings affect the way we're working together.
You know,
Go ahead.
I mean, there's a good point in the chat, and that is important to pay attention to, the vision, the mission, and the goals of the organization.
Mm.
And as change comes about, step back with your team and look at the goals that we have and look at the mission that we have. And let's just align our response to what the organization is trying to accomplish, not only the impact it might have on us. It's a great point.
And I think another thing that came up in the chat, and I think it's important, is to that people should know that they can feel safe to share whatever they want to share. Someone mentioned in the chat we have an anonymous, sorry, we have a team call and then meet one-to-one to break down individual details. Sometimes we don't need to do this as a group. Sometimes we need to have these one-on-ones and create a safe space for to share how we feel about change, or to navigate whatever the situation is. So that's a really good contribution. Thank you.